Can it be possible that there is any difference between us and those people who have no conception of this system? Must we understand that people who are not passed along any of the ways are doomed to turn eternally in one and the same circle, that they are merely food for the moon, that they have no escape and no possibilities? Is it correct to think that there are no ways outside the ways? And how is it arranged that some people, much better people perhaps, do not come across a way, while others, weak and insignificant, come into contact with the possibilities of a way? On one occasion, while talk was proceeding on these subjects, to which we were constantly returning, G began to talk in a somewhat different way to what he had done before, because he had previously always insisted on the fact that outside the ways there was nothing. There is not and there cannot be any choice of the people who come into touch with the ways. In other words, nobody selects them. They select themselves, partly by accident and partly by having a certain hunger. Whoever is without this hunger cannot be helped by accident, and whoever has this hunger very strongly can be brought by accident to the beginning of a way in spite of all unfavourable circumstances. But what of those who were killed and who died from disease in the war, for instance, someone asked. Could not many of them have had this hunger? And how then could this hunger have helped? That is an entirely different thing, said G. These people come under a general law. We do not speak of them, and we cannot. We can only speak of people who, thanks to chance, or fate, or their own cleverness, do not come under a general law, that is, who stay outside the action of any general law of destruction. For instance, it is known through statistics that a certain definite number of people have to fall under trams in Moscow during the year. Then, if a man, even one with a great hunger, falls under a tram and the tram crushes him, we can no longer speak of him from the point of view of work on the ways. We can speak only of those who are alive, and only while they are alive. Trams or war, they are exactly the same thing. One is merely larger, the other smaller. We are speaking of those who do not fall under trams. A man, if he is hungry, has a chance to come into contact with the beginning of a way. But besides hunger still, other roles are necessary. Otherwise, a man will not see the way. Imagine that an educated European, that is a man who knows nothing about religion, comes into touch with the possibility of a religious way. He will see nothing and he will understand nothing. For him it will be stupidity and superstition. But at the same time he may have a great hunger, though formulated intellectually. It is exactly the same thing for a man who has never heard of yoga methods, of the development of consciousness and so on. For him, if he comes into touch with a yoga way, everything he hears will be dead. The fourth way is still more difficult. In order to give the fourth way a right valuation, a man must have thought and felt and been disappointed in many things beforehand. He ought, if not actually to have tried the way of the fakir, the way of the monk and the way of the yogi previously, at least to have known and thought about them and to be convinced that they are no good for him. It is not necessary to understand what I say literally. This thinking process can be unknown to the man himself, but the results of this process must be in him, and only they can help him to recognise the fourth way. Otherwise he can stand very near to it and not see it. But it is certainly wrong to say that unless a man enters one of these ways he has no more chances. Ways are simply help given to people according to their type. At the same time, the ways, the accelerated ways, the ways of personal, individual evolution, as distinct from general evolution, can precede it, can lead up to it, but in any case they are distinct from it. Whether general evolution is proceeding or not is again another question. It is enough for us to realise that it is possible, and therefore evolution for people outside the ways is possible. Speaking more correctly, there are two ways. One we will call the subjective way. It includes all four ways of which we have spoken. The other we will call the objective way. This is the way of people in life. You must not take the names subjective and objective too literally. They express only one aspect. I take them only because there are no other words. Would it be possible to say individual and general ways? Asked someone. No, said Jean. It would be more incorrect than subjective and objective, because the subjective way is not individual in the general meaning of this word, because this way is a school way. From this point of view, the objective way is much more individual, because it admits of many more individual peculiarities. No, it is better to leave these names, subjective and objective. They are not altogether suitable, but we will take them conditionally. People of the objective way simply live in life. They are those whom we call good people. Particular systems and methods are not necessary for them, making use of ordinary religious or intellectual teachings and ordinary morality. They live at the same time according to conscience. They do not of necessity do much good, but they do no evil. Sometimes they happen to be quite uneducated, simple people, but they understand life very well. They have a right valuation of things and a right outlook. And they are, of course, perfecting themselves and evolving. Only their way can be very long with many unnecessary repetitions. I had for a long time wanted to get G to talk about repetition, but he always avoided it. So it was on this occasion. Without answering my question about repetition, he continued. It often seems to people of the way, that is, of the subjective way, especially those who are just beginning, that other people, that is, people of the objective way, are not moving. But this is a great mistake. A simple Obyvatel may sometimes do work within him that he will overtake another, or a monk, or even a yogi. Obyvatel is a strange word in the Russian language. It is used in the sense of inhabitant, without any particular shade. At the same time, it is used to express contempt or derision, Obyvatel, as though there could be nothing worse. But those who speak in this way do not understand that the Obyvatel is the healthy kernel of life, and from the point of view of the possibility of evolution, a good Obyvatel has many more chances than a lunatic or a tramp. Afterwards I will perhaps explain what I mean by these two words. In the meantime we will talk about the Obyvatel. I do not at all wish to say that all Obyvatels are people of the objective way, nothing of the kind. Among them are thieves, rascals and fools, but there are others. I merely wish to say that being a good Obyvatel by itself does not hinder the way. And finally there are different types of Obyvatel. Imagine, for example, the type of Obyvatel who lives all his life just as the other people round him, conspicuous in nothing, perhaps good master, who makes money, and is perhaps even closed-fist. At the same time, he dreams all his life of monasteries, for instance, and dreams that some time or other he will leave everything and go into a monastery. And such things happen in the East and in Russia. A man lives and works, then, when his children or his grandchildren are grown up, he gives everything to them and goes into a monastery. This is the Obyvatel of which I speak. Perhaps he does not go into a monastery, perhaps he does not need this. His own life as an Obyvatel can be his way. People who are definitely thinking about ways, particularly people of intellectual ways, very often look down on the Obyvatel, and in general despise the virtues of the Obyvatel. But they only show by this their own personal unsuitability for any way whatever, because no way can begin from a level lower than the Obyvatel. This is very often lost sight of on people who are unable to organise their own personal lives, who are too weak to struggle with and conquer life, dream of the ways or what they consider are ways, because they think it will be easier for them than life, and because this, so to speak, justifies their weakness and their inadaptability. A man who can be a good Obyvatel is much more helpful from the point of view of the way than a tramp who thinks himself much higher than an Obyvatel. I call tramps all the so-called intelligentsia, artists, poets, any kind of bohemian in general, who despises the Obyvatel and who at the same time would be unable to exist without him. Ability to orientate oneself in life is a very useful quality from the point of view of work. A good Obyvatel should be able to support at least 20 persons by his own labour. What is a man worth who is unable to do this? What does Obyvatel actually mean, asked somebody. Can it be said that an Obyvatel is a good citizen? Ought an Obyvatel to be patriotic? Someone else asked. Let us suppose there is a war. What attitude should an Obyvatel have towards war? There can be very different wars, and there can be different patriots, said G. You all still believe in words. An Obyvatel, if he is a good Obyvatel, does not believe in words. He realises how much idle talk is hidden behind them. People who shout about their patriotism are psychopaths for him, and he looks upon them as such. And how would an Obyvatel look upon pacifists or upon people who refuse to go to the war? Equally, as lunatics. They are probably still worse.